information that you should have about the, what you could have done about the air pollution? You know, what changes do you think it would have made to your life and to your daughter's life if you had had that information?
Well, if we'd had the information, then obviously we would have acted on it. I don't want this to appear like a blame game, because if you know, I don't really do anger. You know, my children are in the back and they can hear me. And when you're raising children, anger is not really the way around it. And if that's the attitude, then I don't think I will be here now. Everything's in hindsight, isn't it? But I think people also need to understand, when Ella was rushed into hospital, a lot of the time, she was barely breathing. She really was, and it was emergency, you know, cardiac arrest, reflex anoxic seizures. So even there are, yes, we should have had the information in calmer times, but when you're rushing your child in at 2 o'clock in the morning and they need to save her, it's not really going to come up about spikes in air pollution on that day. So yes, I actually wish we had had the information, but I can't change things. And I just have to learn to live with that. I'm hoping that going forward, there will be the information for people, like GP surgeries, hospitals, you know, leaflets, so people can make informed decisions. I'm not going to sit here now and regret things that have gone on. No, I'm not going to do that. No. I can see the dilemma of the question. And her consultant was an amazing consultant, and she cared about her deeply. And I hope she sees some of this, you know, and I'll forever be grateful to Charlotte. Some of the decisions she made, you know, she would collapse in a second, and she was able to bring her round. So now's not the time to sit there and do this long blame game. Absolutely not. When you balance it out, yes, the information should have been there. It wasn't, but maybe we can make sure the information is there for the future. And there needs to be a whole education about air pollution and exposure to air pollution. We talk about it in 12 months, in 18 months. How about 6 months' time? How about on the hourly basis, short-term exposure to air pollution? I still think there's a lack of understanding about the damage it does to young lungs, especially, that are not truly formed. That does bother me. So I would rather, going forward, we do a public awareness campaign, raise, you know, teach the population about the damage air pollution is doing, rather than, you know, a blame game. And the messages need to be very clear. I'm very clear about that. They need to be concise and very clear so that people can understand them. And, you know, linking it to COVID, hence all the confusion right now, because the public health messages are not clear. People in responsibilities who are responsible for health messages need to make them very clear. The public are very willing to learn. They want to know. People want to know what they can do to save their children. And it is up to PHE or whoever to make these messages. There needs to be a whole health campaign about this. This is a very serious matter. Air pollution, we talk about COVID deaths. 7 million people die every year due to air pollution, and it hasn't got the the public health emergency which it deserves. And hopefully this will change that.
Hi, I'm Madeline Cummins from the Hour Paper. Rosamund, I just wondered if you could say a few words about the experience of going through a second investigation. It's incredibly upsetting to have to hear all that evidence again. And then a question for the legal team: how legally significant is this ruling, and do you expect similar outcomes in the future?
Let me go first. Grueling. My QC told me on the first day how tired I was going to be. I am lucky because my friends back home, they cooked for us. It is absolutely grueling. And there was over almost 9,000 pages of evidence. And we had to really concentrate and focus all the time. And it's very upsetting because every time they mention my daughter's name, she's my daughter. So I found that really difficult. I think for me, it wasn't the worst. I think listening to Stephen again and hearing how ill Ella was, that was very upsetting. And I wasn't expecting the coroner to ask me about her final night again. I wasn't prepared for that. And he kind of threw me a bit because he knows about it. He was the coroner in the first inquest. And it was really upsetting. But it was part of the thing to where we are now. I will let someone else answer the other one.
Jocelyn, the question was, what is the legal significance of this case?
I think If I may, just before I answer that, I would like to pay tribute to Rosamond and her family for the determination that they've shown in bringing Ella's story to the fore. And I think it was touching that the coroner himself mentioned Ella's determination and the fact that she obviously inherited it from her mother. I don't think I've met anyone stronger than Rosamond, and I think that strength has been necessary to, take her through the agony of Ella's illness and then the 7 years since then in her quest for the truth. So the question you asked me was, what's the legal significance of this? I think it's enormously significant. It's a landmark ruling in that air pollution has been found, excessive levels of air pollution have been found to be contributory to the death of a child, an individual human being. And that brings the pollution, the debate about pollution, which we all know to be extremely dangerous to health, right down to the micro level, that this is affecting our children and our families. And I think from a point of view of...
Well, we'll leave the news conference there by Rosamond Kissy-Debrah talking about the decision to put air pollution into the cause of death of her 9-year-old daughter, Ella. Mrs. Kissy-Debrah said that justice had been done. Well, do stay with Sky News. We'll have a lot more on following the speaking by the leaders of the 4 nations. What should you do over Christmas?